I mean, we have had other Q&A sessions, and I'm happy to answer any questions. But I think today there is a very special one. Things I did the same for some places, so maybe we go to that, and then at the end of the session, there's room for questions about me or the ship or the voyage or any technical stuff. Stu, maybe.
Stu, yes.
That's great. Okay, thanks. Can you see me okay?
Sure.
Beautiful. So it's lovely to speak to everyone tonight. Thank you again for attending today's Q&A session. My name is Stuart McPherson. I'm the project leader of the Darwin 200 side of the voyage. So we've got 3 objectives, which I'm going to tell you about very briefly in a second. So my side's the Darwin 200 side. So thank you for attending this evening.
Perfect. Stuart, could you give us a bit of an overview about the Darwin 200 project?
Pleasure. Okay, so I'll just share my screen if that's okay. And in a few minutes, here's a little overview. This is a very succinct overview. We've got an hour-long video as well. Can you see my screen okay? Is that coming through?
Yep.
Okay, beautiful. So those that have attended past Q&A sessions, you will have heard this before, but for those that haven't, here's a 3 to 5 minute overview of the Darwin 200 project. So in a nutshell, this has been 10 years in development and work. The project has 3 clear objectives. We're selecting and training and empowering 200 of the very best and brightest conservationists, young conservationists, one from each of 200 countries and states from around the world. And I'm absolutely honored to say we have a fine specimen of one of these young Darwin leaders, as we call them, here tonight. His name is Grant, and he's going to give you an overview of his upcoming project on Ascension Island, which is part of the Global Voyage. So we're training and empowering one exceptional young person from each of 200 countries and states around the world. We're creating the world's most exciting classroom to inspire millions of children around the world by beaming totally free activities, resources, experiments, and projects directly into schools. And lastly, we've got some really exciting research projects that we're going to be undertaking during the Global Voyage, which you can be a part of. So if you wish to join the spectacular tour ship Østersgilde, you can be part of these projects as it goes around the world. We're very, very honored to have 3 of the world's most inspiring conservationists as patrons and supporters of this project. The incredible Dr. Jane Goodall, the equally incredible Dr. Sylvia Earle, and Dr. Sarah Darwin, who's one of Charles Darwin's great granddaughters. So a really wonderful connection to Charles Darwin, whose voyage obviously we're following on this global journey. As you may be aware, we've simplified Darwin's journey on HMS Beagle and broken it into 32 voyage legs, which comprise the Global Voyage, which you can join. You can join any of these legs that you would like to. You might notice we've made a few slight differences. Darwin did actually cross the Indian Ocean. We're actually going back underneath Cape Horn for logistical reasons, and because it's such an incredible and exciting sailing adventure. So we have modified the voyage of the Beagle a tiny bit, but it goes to every single major port that Darwin made landfall at and every single location that Darwin visited. It is, of course, the greatest natural history story and adventure of all time, taking in some of the most amazing destinations and sailing experiences around the world, from sailing Cape Horn to the Galapagos to, well, you name it. So it's hopefully a really unique opportunity for those that want to take part in this exciting adventure. So that's a very, very succinct overview of the Darwin 200 project. There is, as I say, an hour-long lecture all about the project on our website if you'd like a more detailed talk. But yeah, in a nutshell, training the world's top young conservationists. These young people are called Darwin leaders. In a nutshell, they have to select an animal or plant Darwin studied, look how it's changed over the last 200 years, look what conservation work's being undertaken right now and whether it's working or not. And then lastly, they have to develop their own ideas for what more could be done to drive the safety of that species forward for the future. The second element, as I mentioned a second ago, is the world's most exciting classroom. This massive rainbow of live experiments, essay competitions, research activities, interviews and daily documentaries. And we're doing 10 test examples of this right now. The world's most exciting classroom consists of 100 events, one every week for 2 years. Right now we're doing a series of 10 of these. We've already done 2, one in South Georgia and one on Falklands on Friday, and we've got 8 more coming up over the next week. So if you want to be part of these, we post them each time on the community pages if you'd like to join them. And this is one of the ones that we've done previously, beaming live from huge bird colonies and so forth. And as I said, the last element of the project are these research projects, which we're going to be undertaking around the world. And I should just add, for those that are wondering, the whole project will be double carbon positive. We've allocated in our budget funding to plant trees in the Atlantic rainforest of Brazil to double offset the carbon from the whole project. If you're excited, if you're interested in this, please do take part. We've tested the voyage in the tall ship Pelican of London twice around the UK with these young people, and now we're about to commence the spectacular global voyage aboard Oosterschelde starting next August. So if you'd like to take part, please sign up either on darwin200.com or dutchtallship.com and be part of this amazing adventure. So thank you for listening to my brief overview of the Darwin 200 project. So thank you. Back to Elvira.
Yeah, thank you, Stuart. It might be nice to, I think a lot of people already know about Oosterschelde who are in this meeting, but maybe they are curious on how the ship is doing at the moment. Gerben, can you maybe tell us a bit, because you're on top of things?
I'm in the middle of things, yeah, you could say. On top, I don't feel, but well, we are in the middle of a major refit. Every so many years, every 5 years, we take off all the rigging of the ship, the spars, the mast, the topmast, the yard, the bowsprit, all the shrouds, the lines, blocks, anything that keeps the whole rigging up and the sails up. We all took that down, we took it in the shed, and we are actually busy maintaining it. We of course do maintain it every well, on a regular basis, but this major refit, this major checks are done every 5 years. As this cost a lot of time, we thought it would be wise to do another major refit at the same time, because the ship is old. She's built in 1917, and for a seagoing ship that is well, normally a seagoing ship is built to last 25 years. So that means the ship is busy with her 5th life already. And that means that you have to give special care to especially the older structures in the ship. And we noticed that the ship was actually, some of the hull plating was how you say, getting less and less, rusting, because of the ballast inside the ship. I mean, in the old days, the ship was built to carry cargo. Now that we don't sell cargo anymore, there is ballast in the ship. And in between the ballast and the ship skin, there some moisture came, and there you can't maintain the ship. So we have decided to take that part of the plating out, to remove that ballast, to put the plating back in, and then put in a new ballast. That sounds very simple. It is a hell of a job, and meanwhile we were doing the rigging job. So we are a bit, how you say, I'm a bit tired, and so is the rest of the crew. But we are doing well. I think, when was it, Elvira? Last week, Oosterschelde came back from the yard, sailing back to Rotterdam. We already had the lower masts installed at the yard, and now this week we are busy in Rotterdam to install the top masts, the yards, the booms, the gaffs, all these spars. And now we are busy, let's say, putting the right tension on every shroud that there is. So slowly, that's getting into shape. Meanwhile, we're busy inside. Obviously, the hull plating is renewed as well, otherwise we couldn't sail. But of course, inside there is a lot of work to be done on the interior. So we are working with about, now what was it, 14 people, I think, every day to get it done. And if everything goes well, we will be ready to sail in the beginning of December again. So these major refits, it's a normal thing to do. Every sailing ship, every ship in the world has its let's say survey dates. That means in a period of 5 years you have to undergo quite a few surveys. Surveyors come from surveying companies to check your let's say your rigging, your hull, your construction, your machinery. All these things are under a regular check, and which is good because we are taking you over the whole world. We want our ship to be good, and we did some extra now just to be prepared. We don't want to be stuck somewhere in a beautiful but not so handy place to do some big work. So we hope when we have done all this that we are ready for the Darwin 200 voyage and take us smoothly over the next 2 or 3 years. Okay.
Thank you, Gerben. Well, I already saw a little bit or a few documents from Stuart about the land-based programs, but I think he also prepared a nice presentation.
Absolutely.
Do you want to take over?
Of course, with pleasure. I'll just share my screen again. So it's lovely to speak back. So sorry, provide an overview of these. Quite a few of you have been emailing about the land-based trips. So basically what we've done is on several of the legs prepared land-based itineraries so that those taking part in the legs can also see some of the amazing wildlife, historical sites, landscapes, and so forth at the destinations or at the start points of the legs that they're joining. So tonight I'm giving a quick overview of the land-based activities on Ascension, St. Helena, and the Falkland Islands. We've actually planned these three, each of these three legs, each of these three land-based itineraries will take place twice, both at the end of the leg arriving at the destination and just before the one starting. So let's start with the Falkland Islands. So those that are joining leg 9 will arrive in the Falkland Islands on January the 5th. We've specifically designed this leg to start on the 6th and include also the accommodation on the night of the 5th. So you can transfer directly from the ship to a hotel. Then the land-based tour starts on January the 6th, 7th and 8th of 2004. As I mentioned, we then also have the same trip again planned for just before starting leg 10. So leg 10 leaves the Falkland Islands on January the 13th of 2024. So we've got the same 3-day land-based itinerary on the 10th, the 11th and the 12th. And again, this enables people to join on the 10th. It includes accommodation for the 10th, 11th and 12th. So then you can go directly to the ship on the start date, which is January the 13th. So in very, very quick, we've got detailed itineraries with every day broken down and all of the locations shown in photos. And these will be on the community pages tomorrow. But just very quickly, as a super quick overview for those, I know a lot of people wanted to know about these. The Falklands trip, land-based trip, starts in Stanley. And basically, we're starting the first day with a city tour, visiting all the key sites around Stanley, including the cathedral and the Whalebone Arch and a spectacular wreck of the Lady Elizabeth and the museum. Then a traditional Falkland Islands fish and chips. Then we're going to some of the sites, which again, will be very hard to organize independently. So the reason why we're doing this is to try and make it as easy as possible for the participants of the voyage to just be able to go and see some of these amazing sites. So the next location on the first day is Volunteer Point, which is home to about 2,500 pairs of beautiful king penguins. And that concludes the first day. The second day of the Falklands land-based tour is as a visit to a really beautiful place called Gypsy Cove. where there's Magellanic penguins, and it's a jump-off point. Then you can catch boats to Kidney Island, which is really special because it's one of the few islands in the Falklands where there's no invasive rodents and still the tussock grass. And there's literally tens of thousands of rockhopper penguins and king shags shown here, and South American sea lions and subantarctic fur seals. So again, it's an opportunity to go and see some of this amazing wildlife out with local guides from the Falkland Islands showing you about their wildlife. Kidney Island is really special because at dark, I believe it's around 200,000 pairs of sooty shearwaters come to nest on the island. They only do so as the sun sets. So it's a really special opportunity to see these sooty shearwaters coming into land. Then lastly, the third day of the land-based Falklands tour, we go to a beautiful beach called Kelp Point. I actually went to film these big old elephant seals for a BBC series a few years ago. And it's very, very smelly, but you can get really close to the elephant seals that come ashore to molt, and they scratch themselves on the beaches and the rocks, and they're often a bit bad-tempered because it must be a bit itchy. But anyway, you can see the elephant seals really nicely up close. And then there's a nearby site called Pleasant Road with a big Gentoo penguin population as well. So we can see many of the 5 species of penguins that occur across the Falkland Islands, which is really great. Then last but not least, we've got local historians ready to give a really interesting history tour for the rest of the afternoon on the Falklands War from the perspective of the islanders. And there's lots of ruins like the downed Argentinian helicopters and so forth that you can still see to this day. Then the last bit is some of the landscapes and these unique stone runs of the Falklands. In a nutshell, that's the 3 days in the Falklands for the land-based itinerary. The next one is St. Helena. So this concerns legs 29 and 30. So those taking part on leg 29 arrive at St. Helena on May the 10th. That's 2025, so a little while off still. But again, like the Falklands one, we've specifically designed these land-based tours so that the ship arrives, you can disembark and then immediately go to the hotel, which is included. So that's the night of the 10th, 11th and 12th. Then we've got the tour activities on the 11th, 12th and 13th, primarily for those people on leg 29. And then again, the same itinerary repeated for leg 30, immediately before leg 30 departs St. Helena. So this St. Helena tour focuses on the beautiful city of Jamestown, which is just a living museum. This town is just incredible. Every single corner of it drips with history, from the fortifications all around the waterfront to the churches, the barracks. It's just one living museum, basically. So we've got a guided tour around Jamestown, exploring, then heading up. There's a really interesting place called Jacob's Ladder, which has 699 steps right the way to the top of the cliffs above Jamestown. And so that those that want to can climb up the ladder. Believe it or not, local St. Helenians, known as saints, actually, they put their legs over one rail and their arms over the other and slide the whole way down. I'm not sure if anyone wants to do that, but anyway, we can walk up it, and those that don't want to walk, we've got vehicles standing by to take people up that don't want to walk up the steps. And at the top, there's incredible military barracks and an old 19th century fort called Fort High Knoll, which is really interesting to explore and see, and just amazing cliffs. Then the second day of this St. Helena tour, we're seeing the unique wirebird that occurs nowhere else in the world. It's an endemic species, and local conservationists are taking us out to go and see this amazing animal. Then we can go to Government House, possibly to meet the governor of St. Helena, but if that doesn't happen, then we'll definitely meet Jonathan. He's a bit of an icon. He's the oldest living land animal on Earth. He supposedly hatched in 1832. Yeah, 1832, which is incredible. He's been on St. Helena for about 100 years. He's actually a Seychelles giant tortoise that was introduced to the island. But yeah, you can go and see him, and it's pretty amazing to think that, yeah, he goes back nearly 2 centuries. So we go and see Jonathan, and then the afternoon of our second day, we go trek out Sandy Bay, which is a really dramatic part of St. Helena, really worth visiting. It's not actually a difficult trek at all, not a difficult walk, but it goes past incredible scenery with these huge volcanic plugs, these big towering rocks. So really, really worth doing. They're called the Ass's Ears and Lot's Wife. If I remember correctly, that's actually Lot's wife there in the distance. And as we go down, there's the nests of masked boobies all down on the cliffs. It's really, really a great trek. And then the last day on the St. Helena land-based tour is really focusing on Napoleon Bonaparte. As you may know, he spent the last 6 years of his life imprisoned on St. Helena and eventually died there. This is actually the house where he spent most of the time. It's called Longwood. Many people don't know he also lived at another place called Briars while Longwood was being basically refurbished for him. So we're going to visit all of the key sites, Briars, Longwood, and then the tomb where he was buried. And this is the exact room where he died, and that's his death mask. So it's really, really interesting to see his history. And we've got a visit to St. Helena's famous heart-shaped waterfall, and then last but not least, a trek up to the central peak, which is called Diana's Peak, which from memory, it's just over 800 meters, but it's a really easy trek because you drive pretty high up to start it. And you've just got the most unbelievable views all across St. Helena. So it's really, really worth doing. And then the last of the land-based tours I'm going to introduce tonight is on Ascension Island. And there's still a few places left on the legs going to Ascension. And I have to say, this is the most incredible island. I spent about 12 weeks or something like that, 10 weeks or something like that on Ascension filming. And it is just unbelievable. It's like another world. It's a volcanic island. And again, this is really why we've planned these land-based tours, because not being arrogant, but unless you've been there, it's very hard to know where to go and what to do. There's no guidebooks. There's basically no infrastructure like that to help you. So that's specifically why we've done these land-based tours, to try and make it as enjoyable as possible for those taking part on these voyage legs. And again, I cannot overstate how amazing this particular island will be. So those joining for leg 30 or leg 31, you're in for a real treat. So leg 30 reaches Ascension on May the 25th, 2025, and leg 31 leaves on June the 2nd, 2025. So we've planned, again, 2 runnings of this land-based tour, one for immediately when leg 30 arrives, so you can disembark, sleep in a hotel, and then immediately continue for the next 3 days doing this trip. And then the same again at the end of, just before leg 31. So you do the 3 days tour, then overnight, then immediately embark. It's just a day before starting leg 31. So the first day of this trip involves exploring Georgetown, which is the capital of Ascension. It's again very much like St. Helena. It really is a living museum. Pretty much all of the buildings are unchanged for the last 100, 150, 200 years. It was an old colonial garrison town, basically. The British garrisoned it to prevent the French from rescuing Napoleon Bonaparte. Then it became an important victualling station and resupply station over the 19th century. And it's absolutely incredible. So after our little exploration of Georgetown, we go to a really interesting place called Mars Bay, which is home to about 250,000 pairs of these guys, which are sooty terns. And there's so many of them. In fact, the airstrip is called Wide Awake because their call sounds like they're shouting wide awake. And also they seem to never go to sleep. They squawk all night long. So I think that's one of the reasons why it was so named. So we go and see the incredible sooty tern colonies, which are immense, and you'll see the chicks and the birds nesting on the ground. And then at a beautiful beach called Shelley Bay, there's one of the most amazing things I've personally ever seen. They're tiny little freshwater pools about the size of a bed. Each one is about the size of a bed. And each pool has its own unique life in that occurs nowhere else in the world. There's many species of unique shrimps and other invertebrates, and many of them occur in just one pool and nowhere else on the planet. Even though they're tiny, I just think it's fascinating. I spent days looking at these and observing them. It's so interesting there. So we can go and have a little look at that. Then the second day, we go into the center of Ascension to this, which is the biggest of the cinder cones on Ascension. I don't want to ruin it for those that are joining for this land-based tour, but the story is well known. As an overview, basically, Darwin and Hooker, Joseph Hooker, who was one of Charles Darwin's best friends, were told to enhance the island. So they developed an idea of sending thousands of trees to the tallest of these cinder cones. Because originally it was totally barren. There's virtually nothing on it except, I think, one species of fern. And they planted thousands of trees and shrubs and created the world's very first artificial rainforest. Everything that you see here is non-native, literally everything. And of course, it's never good to plant non-native animals or plants, but in this case, it was basically a blank slate, so it's a little bit different. Anyway, move on 150, 200 years, and the vegetation has formed 3 layers. There's dry, spiny forest at the bottom, tropical rainforest with big Ditterkarp rainforest trees with lianas and bananas and palms halfway up. And at the very top, this stuff, which is this mossy montane cloud forest with ficus trees growing right at the top. And the reason why they planted all these plants was to actually create water. The abundance of vegetation traps the humidity from the oceanic air. And it really worked. It was incredible. It was a complete success. And it literally creates its own weather now. And the garrison soldiers could collect all of the water that they couldn't ever need from this otherwise totally parched cinder cone volcanic island. So it's a really interesting experiment. We can go and explore that today. And this artificial vegetation is really home to a lot of these special Ascension land crabs, which you'll see scurrying around the ground. And I've seen and filmed lots of species of land crabs, but it's always weird seeing crabs on land. It's something else, something strange. So we'll go and find these up in the cloud forest, and yeah, they're amazing to see. There's an incredible story with Ascension, how it was basically a quarantine station and a place of shipwrecks. And around the coast, there's loads and loads of graves of the shipwrecked sailors, and also literally entire crews that were just dumped to shore, either out of suspicion that they had yellow fever or one of the diseases that raged in the 19th century on ships. And in some cases, 40, 50 men at a time were just abandoned. So we can go to these really depressingly named places such as Dead Man's Beach and Comfortless Cove, and kind of hear some of the stories from a local historian about this extraordinary chapter. And then that night, on the night of the second day of this trip, we've got a chance to see the hatching turtles. So about 5,000 turtles come to Ascension each year to lay their eggs. Each female turtle lays about 6 nests before leaving. So there's something like 30,000 nests of eggs. Each nest can have, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 eggs. So there's a lot of eggs on Ascension, and we're going pretty much at prime hatching time. We may or may not see many adult turtles. I don't honestly know. I've never been in June, May and June before. I've always gone in January, February, but we should certainly see loads and loads of baby hatchlings. So we will go out at night on the second night and try and find lots and lots of these hatchlings. And I did it and filmed it before, out of the season, and we found probably 20 nests emerging and hatching in one night. So there shouldn't be a problem, but it's wildlife. You can never guarantee it, but hopefully we'll see a lot of the baby turtles. And then the last day on Ascension Island is to head out to White Horse Hill, which is this incredible volcanic landscape dotted with seabirds, particularly these guys, which are masked boobies. And their nests, obviously, their nest sites stand out like a sore thumb because they're white guano. They dot the volcanic cliff sides. They're really cool. And because none of this wildlife is adapted to humans, you can literally walk up to 2 meters without disturbing the birds at all and see them and watch them. And it's so amazing to do that. So we'll go and see the masked boobies. and the unique frigate bird that occurs nowhere else in the world, and some of the brown boobies and other species. And then end our Ascension Island tour with this incredible volcanic landscape. We'll go back to, there's a beautiful viewpoint over these peaks called Sisters Peaks, and see this unbelievable apocalyptic landscape of the island. So that's a bit of an overview of those 3 land-based tours. Again, I know a lot of people have been emailing about them. I hope that helps give a bit of an overview. Again, we'll be posting them on the community pages shortly, so you can download the PDFs and go through them and read them if you want to. And we really, really hope this makes your trips even more enjoyable, because, again, the intention here is just to help make it easy for those that are joining those legs to be able to basically disembark and then very quickly and efficiently see the best stuff in each of these destinations. So yeah, really hope you enjoy those land-based tours, and thanks for listening.
Thank you, Stuart.
Pleasure.
Yeah, well, I think it's time for Grant to tell us a bit about being or getting to be a Darwin leader. So good luck, Grant.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. I'm going to try to share my screen. Let's see. Okay. How is that looking?
It's looking
Is it good?
perfect.
Cool. Okay. Hi, everybody. So my name is Grant Terrell. I'm a new PhD student from Florida in the United States. And before I get to my role in the Darwin 200 project, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my background in working with natural history and with biodiversity. So for me, my relationship to birds in particular, professionally, it really got going when I started undergrad and I began working in a natural history collection at my university. So I oversaw the collection, or I oversaw housing for about 36,000 natural history specimens of birds that were collected from all over the world. And this is also where I was forced to confront the biodiversity crisis firsthand for the first time. So as part of our collection, we had a number of specimens of birds that are now extinct in North America. These of all of these specimens here are species that have gone extinct just in the last 200 years. And this is also where I developed a real passion for doing science outreach and science communication, especially working with young people. And so I'm especially excited about the role in the Darwin 200 project of getting to foster sort of enthusiasm for the natural world. And as the ship is traveling around. So I took this passion with me, and I really developed an interest in honing my skills as a field biologist. So following the completion of my undergrad, I went and completed a field season in Northwest Ecuador, where I worked in a highly fragmented landscape where, over 95% of the rainforest had been deforested. And so what was left was kind of a mosaic of these tropical rainforest fragments. And so I worked with the team going through there and documenting the avian biodiversity that was left there, and really trying to get a chance to study the trends of the population. And it was really my first exposure to get familiar with a lot of these field methods for how we assess the populations of different avian species. And it gave me a lot of firsthand experiences to interact with a lot of really cool wildlife. And it also, this is where I learned how much I really enjoy getting to interact with teams of researchers that, we're all kind of on a shared mission, and we're all sort of feeding off of each other's enthusiasm for conservation and sustainable development. And so I carried this with me to the South Pacific to start my PhD at the University of Florida. So I actually just this past summer spent 3 months in Papua New Guinea, where I was working on this archipelago of volcanic islands. the Bismarck Archipelago, and it's a very underexplored archipelago where I was going through and trying to do field expeditions into the remote interiors of these islands and just do basic biodiversity surveys that, really there's not much precedent for in these areas. And so I was working with locals in these remote villages and working with organizing teams and trying to get people to really value their natural resources, more for the biodiversity that they offer as part of their sort of natural heritage than the alternative, which would be cutting it down and planting oil palm. And so really trying to work on the science communication on that front there. And so during this time, we got a lot of chances to encounter really rare bird species, such as the New Britain masked owl here. This is a globally endangered species that's very rarely seen. And there were a variety of other really interesting species as well. So actually in Papua New Guinea is where I ran into Stu for the first time. And it was really lovely getting to meet him and hear about the Darwin 200 project. I, for one, have always had a pretty extreme interest in sort of the history of scientific exploration and these voyages of scientific discovery. And so given the chance, I jumped at the first opportunity to join one of these legs. And so I'm planning on joining for leg 30, the trip into Ascension Island, and conducting a project on the avifauna of Ascension Island there. So as Stu mentioned, Ascension is a very remote island in the middle of the Atlantic. It's situated along the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, and it's a volcanic island, and it's a really relatively recent island. So it's also a pretty small island. It's only about 88 kilometers in land area. And because of that, it's a really difficult island for plants and animals to be able to colonize. And so because of that, it's kind of still in its infancy as far as assembling these biological communities, which makes it a really interesting place to visit as a researcher because you're sort of looking at, for example, the Galapagos archipelago, but a million years back. And so it's really interesting to kind of see these stages of colonization. And so then, as Stu mentioned, the native landscape on Ascension is kind of a barren, volcanic landscape covered in ash and these barren lava fields with only a few native trees. Because of its remoteness and how difficult it is for a lot of animals to be able to colonize this island, the largest terrestrial organism, or the largest purely terrestrial organism, is the land crab that we mentioned. I'm going to try not to overlap with Stu too much here. But it's also, as an ornithologist, it's a really interesting place as its importance as a global importance for breeding seabirds in the mid-Atlantic. So these are, again, the city terns, which nest in huge numbers on Ascension, masked boobies, as we learned. And then I think the most special bird that's remaining on Ascension is this guy here, the Ascension frigate bird. It's a unique species of frigate bird that is only known to breed on Ascension Island. And this is a bird, the entire population is dependent on this island for its survival. And so this was, I think I'll get into the conservation in a second, but as we mentioned, so Ascension became a permanently settled British colony. I believe the permanent settlement began in 1815. And in addition to this, huge scale ecological experiment of populating one of the huge cinder cones with a cloud forest, the Europeans also brought a handful of unintended introduced species with them. And I wanted to focus especially on the birds that have been brought with the British to Ascension. So these are common mynas, which now breed in huge numbers on Ascension Island. There are also common waxbills, which have been introduced to the area. And this one is really cool. The redneck spurfowl has also been introduced from Africa into Ascension Island. And most importantly, from the avian perspective, or at least of the native wildlife on Ascension, the British also introduced cats. Partly cats were frequently kept on ships in order to control the rat infestations that would typically be on these wooden sailing ships. And so rats and cats both made their way onto Ascension Island. And pretty shortly, most of the native avifauna was wiped off of the main bit of Ascension Island. And so actually, I believe by 1870, there were no breeding seabirds that were left on the mainland of Ascension Island. All of the breeding seabirds were restricted to this little offshore islet that is this white island here. It's white because it's covered in guano, but this is Boatswain Island, or Boatswain Bird Island. Just a tiny little islet there. And it sort of served as the last refuge of a lot of these breeding seabirds. So luckily in 2004, there was a massive effort in order to eradicate the cats from the mainland of Ascension Island. And this was completed within around 2 years. And so since then, there started to be at least a marginal recovery for many of the native seabirds, including the Ascension frigate, which is now starting to breed. I believe it's still only breeding on Boatswain Bird Island, but I think it's definitely visiting the mainland of Ascension. But the sooty terns have rebounded, and the mass boobies have rebounded quite a bit. However, these seabird populations are really difficult to it's really difficult to quantify the trends, because seabirds typically they aren't restricted to just being in one area, only when they breed, really. And so because of that, you really need these systematic long-term studies to track the population trends of seabirds. And so this is something that is currently being underdone with the Ascension Conservation Trust that's on the island there. And so they're working on monitoring these populations there. As you know, we've gotten a lot better about managing the invasive species on Ascension, but there are a lot of other pressures from Kili longline fishing that are still affecting a lot of the seabirds that rely on Ascension for, as a vital breeding area. So as far as doing original projects, I'm kind of on the fence about whether or not I would. It's 2 years out, but I'm a little on the fence about whether or not I would like to continue the work that's currently being done on the breeding seabirds of Ascension Island, or if I'd like to start an original project, actually looking at Green Mountain and trying to see how the introduced avian communities are actually self-assembling on this artificial rainforest landscape. I think this would provide a lot of really interesting insights about how ecological communities are assembled, especially in remote island groups. And as we all know, islands have historically provided sort of they're like a natural playground for evolution and ecology. And historically, they've been very important for the development of a lot of our understanding about how biology, about how biology works and the underpinnings of biology. And so I think this would be a very unique opportunity to look at these kind of founding ecological communities and how they're self-assembling on Ascension. But that's about it. Let's see, I'll stop.
Thank you, Grant. You still have to be patient a little bit because we're not there yet in Ascension Island. Gerben, I think you also prepared a bit on for a land-based tour in Cape Verde. Can I invite you to?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm happy to do so, but maybe it's also nice to have some questions for Grant or Or do we
Yeah,
that?
possible as well.
I don't know what's better, because I leave that to Stu or to you.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, Grant, both of your ideas were really fascinating. Obviously, continuing the recovery of the frigates. They are, by the way, on the mainland now. So you could absolutely, one of your Darwin Leader projects could be looking at the recovery and how the population is doing on the mainland. But equally, I think no one ever has studied how the bird life has adapted to the artificial rainforest. So both of those projects could be awesome research projects for your Darwin Leader placement activities. So yeah,
I
amazing.
kind of hate to say it as a conservationist, but there are a lot of really interesting species that have been introduced to Ascension, and there's this sort of natural experiment that's unfolding before us. You know, the data is out there to collect.
Absolutely. And it is a bit of an exception because it was basically a blank slate. So, you know, obviously everywhere else in the world, it would be bad for non-native invasive species to be present, but this is a bit of an exception because it was unusual. Does anyone have any questions about the Darwin Leader program, or, you know, any questions aimed directly for Grant? And basically, yeah, would anyone like to know anything more about the Darwin Leader program? We have a fine specimen of a leader here to answer any questions.
Maybe it's good to add that it is possible to also ask questions you might have in the chat box. Then,
Absolutely. Well, I guess I'll elaborate a tiny bit. So what we're basically doing is partnering with NGOs in every single one of these ports. So in Grant's case, we're partnering with the Conservation Department of the Ascension Island government. We're paying the Ascension Island government to basically look after Grant and help make his project happen. We're basically paying we're making a donation to the Conservation Department to then facilitate the research that Grant's doing. So they'll take him out to the study locations once he's chosen the subject that he wishes to study, and then we'll complete his projects, which again consists of those three areas: looking at the problem, what's happened, what conservation work's currently being undertaken, and then to use his initiative to get out there, develop new ideas, new strategies, new solutions to basically help make the situation better for the subject that he chooses. So Grant, obviously it's still a bit of time, you don't have to choose yet, but those two are great ideas, and both of them would be brilliant for the program that you would be undertaking on Ascension. Yeah. Well,
yeah,
if
no
anyone does
question,
have
only compliments for you, I think. Oh, there are very well done, friend.
well, thank you so much, Grant, for joining tonight. We really appreciate it. There's a couple of questions concerning the land-based tours. If I may, I'll just quickly jump in and answer them.
Sure.
Because they've been raised. The first question concerned the second calling. Basically, will the second calling at the Falkland legs have the same itineraries as legs 9 and 10? This is a very good question. So we actually haven't got a week planned in the Falklands for between legs 27 and 28. But if there's demand, absolutely no problem. We can easily run the same itinerary again for legs 27 and 28. In fact, I'll prepare a new document outlining that specifically for legs 27 and 28. So the answer to that is yes, we can definitely run it again for legs 27 and 28 when we join in. There's another question from Helen. For the land-based tours, when can we sign up, and can we extend our hotel stay if we're both arriving and leaving on a Yes, absolutely, to both those questions. So we're launching them right now. We'll email them out and they'll be on the community pages literally tomorrow, and absolutely no problem to extend the stay. So just to be clear, these land tours are completely non-profit. I'm not being paid to do them or anything like that. They just cover the cost of them. We're getting special rates with each of the hotels in the ports. And definitely, if you want to extend your stay at those ports, we can, of course, do that. We can organize it. If you just email me directly, I can help you organize that. But we've got lots and lots of time to do that. So hope that answers your question. What other land-based tours Carter's asked? I believe that Matthias Novera considering the Azores and Cape Verde land-based tours, which I think they're going to introduce directly. And so I'll leave that one for you guys, I think, because those islands aren't my areas of expertise.
Okay. Yeah. I also see a question: how many young scientists typically join each leg?
Okay, so we've currently got 2 places on the voyage legs for researchers, and then the teams of Darwin leaders coming to the ports between the voyage legs. So to be clear, we've got researchers on board. We've got 2 places allocated on every single voyage leg so far. And then to be clear, the Darwin leaders come to the ports between the voyage legs. They come in groups of roughly between 4 to 6 to 8, depending upon the port in question. Oh, I just saw Karen replied, yes, please, for legs 27 to 20. Okay, no problem at all. I'll prepare that right now. I'll get working on that as well. Cool.
Okay, thank you. Well, I then think it's good for Gerben to present the land-based tour on.
Okay. Yeah, it's I saw that question too. Do you intend to organize one in every port? And yes, we would like to. We're not quite sure if we can. We started with the ones that we have already a lot of knowledge about and where we have our contacts, but we will use the coming months to try and develop more land-based tours in more ports. Obviously, some places are new to us, some places are a bit more difficult, and some other places have, for example, Rio de Janeiro. There's so much to do that it's hard to choose. But we will try to do that. I have done something now for Cape Verde because. Of course, if you book a trip on the ship, you'll be most of the time on board the ship at sea, and it would be silly not to use that fantastic voyage to not let's say visit the place where you come on board and also the place where you step off the ship. So for all the groups that actually leave the ship in Cape Verde, or the groups that will come on board in Cape Verde, I have made a little idea of a land-based tour. I share my screen. I hope that works. No, it doesn't. Oh, share this one.
Okay.
It does work so far, right? Now I have to. Yeah. Okay. Cape Verde is quite a special place, as Grant was telling about, and Stu was telling about Ascension Island. Also, Cape Verde Islands is a group of islands from a volcano origin. All these islands are really different. Some of them are older and they are completely eroded. They are flat. They have sand. Other ones are quite mountainous and rugged. Where we will be based is the city of Mindelo. The city of Mindelo is one of the old places in Cape Verde. It's based on the island of São Vicente, and in the old days, the sailing ship used to go there to get water, to get food, and later on they brought coal there for the steamers that were crossing the ocean. So in fact, the sailing ship helped the steamers to make the big crossing. This is the city of Mindelo, and what you could do if you are joining the ship there is to come a bit earlier and book a hotel here. There's plenty of room. It's a very friendly town. The island is quite barren. It's dry, but the town is colorful and nice. And you could explore it on your own if you would like to. This is typically the streets, how they are. And this is, for example, every morning you get the covered market, as they are from the Portuguese ideas. This is, you see all the fruits and special, sometimes you don't even know what kind of vegetables it are being sold there. You get the fish market here, the typical yellowfin tuna that is very much caught there in Cape Verde, being cleaned here for you. But we will be based in Mindelo. You see it here in the right corner below, which is actually this natural harbor is actually the half of a crater of the volcano. It collapsed, so you can enter it, and we'll be at anchor there. We take the ferry to go to the other island, Santa Antao, which is the biggest island and also the most special, I think, of all the Cape Verde Islands. The sea straits between the two islands, they can be quite choppy because of the Venturi effect. The wind is often a bit higher than around the islands, and so the sea can be choppy. In Porto Novo also, there is only a very, very tiny place where the ship can be. And for the rest, it's steep down. So the islands, they rise from the seamount almost vertically. I mean, you have the land and 100 meters out, it's 800 meters deep, really like that. So what we do, we take the ferry, and we're not the only one taking the ferry. There's a lot of traffic between the two islands. Here you see a typical, car with water, with the people, with all the stuff they bring from one island to the other, and all these stuff and all these people, they all go on the ferry, which is behind us there, as do we. And this is the sea strait between the two islands where we go to the island. The first thing what we do on the island is we have our guide there, and he has a car, and he brings us on the dry side of the islands. He drives us up to the crater of the volcano. And on this picture, you can actually see it. The flat part is actually inside the crater, and the little hill there, that is actually the rim of the crater. Here you see it a little better. It's lush, it's green, because it's quite high in the mountains. The island is about 1,800 meters high here. Here we will be going off the truck, and we walk the last bit up. And then when you walk to the edge of the crater, you can actually, it's really a sharp edge, and then you can look down on the other side. This is the edge of the crater, and this little path you can see there, this is the path we will take you down on. It's very steep. It's a nice, beautiful walk. It's one of the most beautiful walks I've ever made. As you see, it is a sharp edges of these mountains. This is a very young island. This is the view from the crater down. This is the area where we're gonna bring you for a nice hike. The city, or the village at the end of it, is Paul, and this coast is called, or this valley is called Ribeira de Paul. And we walk down here, and you will see here the typical terraces where they grow their vegetables. Quite small terraces. This is a little farmhouse, and you can see around there is some, what is it here? Potatoes, I think, some other vegetables, I don't know. You see some banana plants. You see the sugarcane. Here you see more sugarcane, the mango trees there. Beautiful, beautiful, and very lush area, and a very, very nice walk. It takes us about 3.5 hours, this walk. Little farmhouse again. You see on your left side, see some coffee plants. On the right-hand side, you see some bananas, some sugarcane again. The people living there. It's interesting because it's a very dry. It hardly ever rains in Cape Verde, but as this island is so steep, you get the rainy side of the mountain, and the rainy side of the mountain, like the Green Mountain on Ascension, the forest takes all the moisture out of the air, and this all this water is collected, and they bring it down over the whole slopes of the mountains to water their plants. It's very tiny. I mean, a typical is a typical farmer maybe has a little piece of land of 5 to 10 meters, and then another terrace of 2 to 5 meters, and then another terrace of 1 to 3 meters. Really, really small. And sometimes you see, like here, a little cow, papayas that they grow, bananas, of course. The people that live there, they're quite friendly. This island, although the biggest one, there is no direct flights to it. There is no hardly any tourism there, and the people welcome you very much when you're here. The children on the farm. And then slowly we're going descend down to Paul, which you see here. The village of Paul. Really a very, very, very beautiful walk. For the ones that are really fit, they can go down and they can go to Ponta del Sol, which is the city which lies on the other side of the island to the coast. And here also the car comes to pick us up again and bring us over the island to the back to the ferry. And then at the end of the day, the ferry brings us back to. We first have some food, of course. The ferry brings us back to Mindelo, where Oosterschelde, you see her here, just in the harbor of Mindelo at anchor, and then you can come directly on board. So for all the people that are joining the ship, I would really recommend come 2 days earlier, take 1 day to explore Mindelo, and then the next day I will take you to the other island, Sant'Antao. I'll show you this very, very beautiful island, make this beautiful hike, and then at the end of the day I'll bring you on board and we have some food and drinks on board and you sleep and be ready for the next adventure. So that's the idea. This is it, Elvira.
Thank you, Gerben. Well, there are a few questions. The first one was sent in by email, and the question was if there would be any diving gear on board. Maybe Gerben, you can answer that question.
I can answer that question. The answer is no. And I say that's quite clear because diving is very beautiful. It's very nice, but it's also very dangerous. And we are going to places that we don't know. So I really can recommend for everybody who has his license to go and diving, but please do it at a local dive master and not with us. Because if we would bring that on board and people would want to dive, we're still responsible. So we're not into that. So there's no diving gear on board. But of course, in all the ports where we get, well, it's nowadays very easy to find local diving schools or dive masters that can dive with you.
Yeah, they can guide you to the best places, and we won't know that. There's a question from Carter. I'm staying in Mangareva between the legs 17 and 18 and can offer my service as someone to help to look after your students. Stuart, maybe you can...
Absolutely. Well, first of all, a very, very sincere thank you for the offer. We're precisely looking at this as part of we'll call it the mentor program. So yes, please. If you could send an email to info@darwin200.com. I'm basically making a database right now of people who have volunteered to help in different ports. So a very sincere thank you very much. We definitely need guidance in this way. And yeah, if you can, please send us an email either through the website, if you click on the mentors link, or through just by emailing info@darwin200.com. That would be really, really appreciated. So thank you very, very much.
Okay, thank you. There was a question also by email if we offer the opportunity to use, I'm not sure if I pronounce it correctly, celestial navigation. Gerben?
Yes, we can. We still have it on board. It's no longer compulsory on board of ships. Until 5-6 years ago, it was still compulsory to have a sextant on board and all the timetables. But it's no longer. But we still have it. And of course, the captain and the chief officer, they are happy to explain to the people that want to learn about celestial navigation. So yes.
Thank you. And we have a question from Jan. He asked when the legs from Tahiti to Cook Island and Tonga and Fiji will be subject of a Zoom meeting. There was already a meeting about that. I will send you a link to all the Q&A sessions have been recorded and you can look it up on the website, but I will send you the link so you can rewatch it. Okay, any other questions? Bjorn, let me see. I will ask, yeah.
Sorry, it comes up as B. John. I apologize.
Oh, B. John, yeah.
I'm still mute. Am I still? No, I'm good.
No, you're there.
Follow up on the celestial navigation. Do you let us take moonshots, sunshots, and everything?
Sure.
Noontime. Yeah. Cool.
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, the thing is, as you will probably know, celestial navigation is not so simple. If you're not I'm also very rusty, so I always start in midday, which is the easiest one, and then you can expand to another sun altitude later in the day, and then you can get your position later in the day. The stars, for example, they're really difficult because you have to do at least 5. You have to do them at dawn or daybreak. You have to be very quick and still very precise. And on a moving ship, that is not always feasible, but it's nice to try and nice to finally recalculate until you're there where you want to be.
Yeah, thank you. Looking forward to that.
John. Yeah. Any more questions? Well, I think not. So then I guess we can thank you all for joining us. Stuart, maybe do you already have an idea what the next session will be about?
Yes, absolutely. So if you're willing, I'd love to present an overview of the world's most exciting classroom activities and building on the example ones that we're doing right now. So we could do that and also roll out some of the other ideas for the activities in between the ports and some of the highlights that you can do regardless of these land-based tours. I mean, what we've already done over the last 4 months is break down each of the 32 legs, but we can also offer some guidance specifically in some of the ports as well that we're visiting. So if that's okay with everyone, we'll prepare that for next month. Beautiful. And just remember, as Elvira very kindly said, all of this past sessions, I think we've got 7 now, all of them are recorded and online, both on the community pages and on darwin200.com/info. So all of them are recorded and the YouTube channel, Darwin 200 YouTube channel. So if you'd like to watch the past ones, they're all online, ready and waiting for you. And this one will be shortly. We'll edit this one and get it up as quickly as possible. So an enormous thank you for attending. It's an absolute pleasure to see everyone tonight, and look forward very much to seeing you aboard for the global voyage. So thank you for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Have a very nice evening. Lovely to speak to you all. Take care.